Hello friends in Christ. Today we are once again at a Mass, a moment of peace and contemplation for hundreds of people. And suddenly, something unbelievable happens, something that had happened before, but which repeated itself in a shocking way, right in front of everyone, involving the image of Our Lady that is venerated there with such affection. This is not just any story. It is a tale of faith, mystery, and the power of events that make us stop and think about things that we cannot explain with everyday logic alone. What could this repetition mean? Before we go into the details that will keep you hooked from beginning to end, because this story has twists and turns that you will not expect, I invite you to do something right now. Write in the comments very quickly the names of people you love, relatives, friends, or even situations that urgently need prayer. People who are going through difficulties, who have lost their faith, who need healing, or simply who you want to see more protected and blessed. Let's gather all these names and put them in our main prayer, asking for Our Lady's intercession with the rosary at the end. Write them down right now because together our prayer is stronger. To understand the impact of what happened, we need to go back in time a little, to the first time that this image in question, a beautiful statue of Our Lady that stood prominently in the church, fell. This specific statue has always been very dear to the community. It had been there for many years, perhaps decades, and for the faithful it was not just an object, but a sacred symbol, a point of connection with the divine and with the Virgin Mary, Mother of Jesus. The first fall was a big shock for everyone. No one could really explain it. It simply fell, seemingly out of nowhere, falling to the ground, and, yes, it ended up breaking in some parts. It was a sad moment for the parishioners, seeing that symbol of faith there, damaged. But the faith of those people was greater than the sadness. Immediately, the community came together, pooled resources, and with the help of skilled and devoted people, the statue was carefully collected, restored piece by piece, and repaired with care and devotion. Every effort was made to make it as good as new, or even more special after going through that accident. It was put back in its place of honor, perhaps even with more care than before, and life in the church went on as usual, with masses, prayers, and the statue there restored as a testament to the resilience of the faith of those people. No one imagined that the story was far from over. And then we arrived at the day when it all happened again. It was a normal Mass, the kind that happens every day or on the weekend, with a church full of faithful gathered to praise, give thanks and ask for help. The priest was at the altar, the choir was perhaps singing, and the people, each with their own intentions, their joys and their pains, were there, focused on that sacred moment. The statue of Our Lady, the same one that had fallen and been restored with so much love, was there in its usual place, looking firm and secure. And suddenly, without warning, without anyone expecting it, in the midst of silence or perhaps during a more intense prayer, it happened again. The statue, to the astonishment of everyone present, simply fell over once more. It was not a slow slide, it was not something that had time to foresee. It was a quick, direct movement, and it fell to the ground for the second time. The noise, although perhaps not very loud depending on the material or floor, echoed in the church, and more than the sound, what fell upon the congregation was a heavy silence of pure surprise and disbelief. Heads instantly turned to the place where the sound came from, and their eyes could not believe what they saw. The image of Our Lady had fallen again. What followed the fall was a mix of emotions and reactions. Initially, as I mentioned, an almost absolute silence took over the church. People were paralyzed, trying to process what they had just seen. On their faces, one could see confusion, fright, and in many, a deep feeling of shock. Did it fall again? The question seemed to hang in the air, even though no one said it out loud at that moment. Eyes met, seeking an explanation, a confirmation that what they had seen was real. The priest at the altar was also visibly surprised, perhaps as shocked as any of the faithful present. The Mass was interrupted. It was impossible to simply continue as if nothing had happened. There was a different energy in the air, a feeling that this event was not just a mechanical accident, especially since it had happened again after all the care taken to restore it. The people closest to the fallen image approached it carefully. Others remained in their places, praying in silence, and many began to murmur, commenting among themselves about the strangeness of the situation. It was clear that for that community, this was much more than a simple falling object. It was something that affected their faith, their deepest beliefs. And what made the situation even more intriguing and shocking was the complete lack of a logical and simple explanation for what had happened. Just like the first time, but perhaps more strongly now, people were looking for a physical reason, something that would justify the fall. Was there a strong wind that could have knocked the statue over? The answer was no. The atmosphere inside the church was calm. Did anyone bump into it? No one was close enough to have touched the statue at the time it fell. It was in a high place and difficult to reach for an accidental touch. Was the place where it was resting unstable? After the first fall and the restoration, one can imagine that every care was redoubled to ensure that it was firmly placed on a safe and stable base. The faithful who picked it up the first time and participated in its replacement testified to this. The statue was heavy, had a relatively wide base, and was resting on a flat surface. Every safety element that could be thought of after the first fall was probably considered. And yet, it fell again, defying physics and logic, leaving a big question mark in everyone's mind. If it wasn't the wind, if it wasn't someone who touched it, if it wasn't the unstable base, then why, or rather how, did it happen again? This lack of a clear physical explanation was what really made the event go from the realm of accident to that of inexplicable phenomenon. It is essential to recall the process of the first restoration to understand how unlikely it was that the statue would fall again due to structural or fixing failure. When the statue fell for the first time and broke, the community did not discard it. On the contrary, they acted with immense respect and devotion. The restoration was not done in a hurry or haphazardly. It was a meticulous job. People from the community itself, perhaps local artisans or simply faithful with manual skills and a great love for Our Lady, volunteered for the work. They collected the pieces with reverence, as if they were caring for a treasure. They used suitable materials to glue and reinforce the broken parts, sanded, painted, and did everything they could to restore the statue to its original form, or as close to it as possible. Think of the care, patience, and prayer that must have accompanied each step of this process. It was not just a repair. It was an act of faith and love. And when it was put back in its place, it is almost certain that extra precautions were taken. Perhaps the base was reinforced, perhaps the location was chosen with greater care to avoid any risk. It was a statue that had been restored with devotion, placed in a place that was supposed to be safe, and yet it fell again. This reinforces the idea that the cause was not the fragility of the statue or the insecurity of the place where it was placed. Faced with something so inexplicable by human reason, especially in a faith-based environment like a church, the minds and hearts of the faithful naturally turn to the realm of spiritual interpretations. If it was not an ordinary accident, what could it be? For many, the repetition of the event, the falling of the image of the Mother of Jesus twice under mysterious circumstances, could not be a mere coincidence. Was it a sign? A warning? A message that needed to be deciphered? Various interpretations began to emerge among the faithful. Some thought it could be a warning about the difficult times we live in, about the loss of faith in many people, about the lack of respect for Christian values in society. Others interpreted it as a call to more intense prayer, a reminder that we need to turn more to God and to the intercession of Mary in our lives. There were those who thought that perhaps it was a sign that something in the church community needed to change, a call to deeper conversion, to forgiveness, to unity. The fact is that an event like this, which defies logic, forces us to look beyond the material and ask ourselves, what could the sky be trying to tell us? This doubt, this search for meaning, transformed the initial shock into an invitation to reflection and prayer. This story of the statue that fell twice makes us think about how, often, our own lives also seem to present unexpected falls that leave us in shock. It could be a sudden illness, the loss of a job, a serious disagreement with someone we love, or simply that feeling of discouragement that hits us for no apparent reason. These are moments that, just like the falling statue, shake our foundations and make us question the why. And it is in these moments, just as the community came together around the mystery of the statue, that we are called to unite through faith and prayer. The event in the church reminds us that the life of faith is not static. It requires constant attention, daily prayer, the search for inner peace, the difficult but necessary practice of forgiveness for ourselves and others, and preaching, not only with words, but with our own life example. We need to have faith not only when everything is fine and in place, but especially when things seem to fall and break around us. May this story inspire us to have more faith, to seek more conversions in our lives and in the lives of those we love, to forgive more and to be instruments of peace. And speaking of prayer and seeking peace and conversion for ourselves and others, I invite you again. If you haven't written yet, write right now in the comments the name of those people who need a special prayer, who need light, strength, healing, peace. Let's take all these names in our prayer with the Holy Rosary. Your participation is very important. This story of the statue that fell twice is, without a doubt, one of those events that remains etched in the memory and heart of a community. It challenges us to look at the inexplicable with the eyes of faith, and to seek meaning where logic cannot reach. It reminds us of the fragility of material things, but also of the strength of faith and unity around prayer. Whatever the true explanation, physical or spiritual, the fact is that the event generated reflection and probably a rekindling of faith for many. And you, what do you think about this story? Do you think it was a sign? A very strange coincidence? Which spiritual interpretation makes the most sense to you? Leave your comment below and share your opinion. Your perspective is very valuable to us and to the entire community that watches. Also, if this story touched you in any way, or if you believe in the power of prayer and faith, please leave your like on this video. This greatly helps our channel to bring this message and other stories of faith to more people. And if you are not yet subscribed, click this subscribe button and activate the bell so you don't miss our next videos. I sincerely thank you for watching this far and for joining us in this chain of faith and prayer. May Our Lady intercede for all of us. May God be with you.